The death toll from Hurricane Dorian rises. And in sports, the Caribbean Premier League to revert to an August start date next year. I'm Ricardo Roberts, and this is Caribbean in 10 for Wednesday, September 4th, 2019. I'll be back with the details after the break. The death toll in the Bahamas from the onslaught by Hurricane Dorian has climbed to 7, and Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis has told Bahamians to expect more fatalities. He gave the grim news and an initial report on the devastation caused by the storm last night after doing an aerial tour of ABACO, which was pummeled by winds of near 185 miles per hour and even higher gusts on Sunday before Dorian continued on a destructive path across Grand Bahama. On Monday, the Prime Minister had reported that 5 people were confirmed to have died during the hurricane. The Prime Minister also reported on the damage to infrastructure. He said parts of ABACO are decimated with severe damage to homes, businesses and infrastructure. He said the southern part suffered less devastation than the north. Minnis said the priority now is search, rescue and recovery, and he promised that every effort will be made to assist those affected. Prime Minister Minnis had been accompanied on his tour by other government officials and opposition leader Philip Brave Davis. He said an initial assessment would be done of Grand Bahama once the all clear is given by the Met Office. Well, now that Dorian has passed through the region, residents in the Caribbean are keeping an eye on Tropical Storm Gabrielle, developed early this morning and has strengthened over the open Atlantic Ocean. The National Hurricane Center in its latest bulletin at 11 a.m. said Gabrielle was located about 715 miles west-northwest of the Cabo and was moving towards the northwest at 9 miles per hour. That motion is expected to continue through Saturday with an increase in forward speed expected later in the week. The NHC said maximum sustained winds have increased to near 50 miles per hour with higher gusts, and little change in strength is forecast during the next few days. There are no watches and warnings in effect as Tropical Storm Gabrielle currently poses no threat to land. In other news, this Wednesday, Haiti's Prime Minister Fitzwilliam Michel is expected to make his policy statement to the Senate tomorrow after the Chamber of Deputies gave him the green light yesterday. When the vote was taken, 76 deputies voted for Prime Minister Michel's policy, 3 abstained and none voted against. Earlier, opposition deputies had continued their strategy of ransacking the chamber to prevent legislators from hearing Prime Minister Michel's statement. They knocked over chairs, desks and other furniture in the meeting room, as well as poured a thick liquid on the seat reserved for the chairman of the meeting, Gary Boudou, who is also president of the lower house. Despite the disruption, the Chamber of Deputies heard the presentation of Michel, who was accompanied by members of his cabinet. Now, following the presentation, Michel received the backing of the deputies and will be invited with his cabinet to the Senate to make a similar presentation tomorrow. Michel, a former executive in the Ministry of Economy and Finance, is Haiti's fourth prime minister since President Jovenel Moise became head of state back in 2017. And stay with us, your Midday Sport is next. Welcome back. It's now time for sport. Caribbean Premier League organizers have struck an agreement with Cricket West Indies, which will see the popular domestic T20 tournament revert to the August start date. Now, the 8th edition of the tournament will be played from August 19th to September 26th, ensuring the availability of all West Indies contracted players. This year's tournament was initially carded for August 21st to September 27th, but had to be pushed back to accommodate India's tour of the Caribbean, which concluded on Monday. The campaign will now bowl off on Wednesday in Port of Spain and run until October 12th. Chief Executive Officer Johnny Graves said it would be even more critical that all marquee West Indies players were available for the 2020 tournament, especially with the Caribbean side defending their T20 World Cup title in Australia next year. Still in cricket, West Indies' woes in the just concluded series against India have not affected skipper Jason Holder's fortunes in the ICC Test rankings. The 27-year-old leapt 7 places to 4th in the latest bowling rankings released on Tuesday, following his 5-wicket haul in the first innings of the second test at Sabina Park in Jamaica. He ended the game with 6 wickets, but West Indies went down by 257 runs on Monday's 4th day following another weak batting display. Holder has been the most consistent West Indies cricketer in the longest format over the last 20 months, taking 44 wickets at 14 runs apiece and gathering 669 runs at an average of 44. Australian Steve Smith has replaced Virat Kohli as the world's #1 batsman, while Australian pacer Pat Cummins remains the #1 bowler. Meanwhile, new ball seamer Kemar Roach has dropped 1 place to 9th in the bowling rankings, while speedster Shannon Gabriel has slipped to 19th to be the only other West Indies player in the top 20. And that's Caribbean in 10. Join us again at 6:30 for Caribbean Newsline. Until then, good afternoon.